I remember learning the words to "There's a Kind of Hush" on the radio. I remember singing along to a radio song. I remember my first 45 was "Canada, We Love Thee."
That's the 1967
So I was
song.
born in 1963, so that was we all got a record in our stockings at Christmas.
You were 4 years old.
I was 4 years old, and I remember that distinctly. My mom was a singer. She had a record made, things like that, so she sang all her life. So she had lots of great records. I remember
what was
My Fair Lady. I must have sang. I could have danced all night till my head caved in. We had a piano. We had piano lessons from the time I was 6. My first piano lesson.
So you were musically.
Yeah. I played in church. I played piano in church. Yeah, I was very. My mom taught the choir. It's just yeah, totally. Yeah, this lady in town babysat me, and she taught me how to play. The ring, ding, ding, ring, ding, ding, ring, ding, ding. I call it the ding, ding, ding song. So yeah, she taught me that, and then I never stopped touching the piano from that moment on.
So you still?
But I don't play by ear. My mom's dad was he did Chautauquas, so he did. He sang and he traveled with Chautauqua in Saskatchewan.
That's a big deal.
Back in he was a pharmacist and so lots of music.
What was your first live concert?
You know what? It was Krista Berg.
Really?
I would say in Calgary. I came out here. Oh my gosh! And Patricia the Stripper. First time I heard Patricia the Stripper was a friend of ours was Scottish, and his brogue was so thick that I thought he was singing a camp song. I'd never heard. I'm from Saskatchewan. We had CHB radio, and we didn't have, I didn't know anything of Christopher. Didn't know he existed.
Right.
And I thought they were singing a camp song. Like I knew all the words to Patricia the Stripper, and I knew lots of songs from camp and stuff like that. But I was like, what? And then we went, and then of course I knew it was an album and all the thing, and we went to the concert.
First big love of music.
Donny Osmond Superstar double album set.
Wow.
It was the first record I ever bought. But I used to interview myself in the mirror as his wife. I had a little record player back here. I'd cut to the interview. I'd say, just a minute. Yes, of course we'll sing a duet.
Mrs.
We
Cory
put
Mack.
and because we had so many things in common, like a dimple, like brown eyes, and brothers. Those are the 3 things that I thought would make a good marriage. And I would go, just one moment, please. Of course we'll sing. And then we'd sing Puppy Love and me and Donny.
And looking in each other's eyes.
Well, yeah, I had a poster on my wall, and my mom made me a hat that matched the hat that he had on. So I thought he was pretty awesome. I was really, I liked that. My mom had a Moody River Pat Boone album that had a song called Karina Karina. So I thought it was and that's my real name. So Corrine is my real name. So it was like all fate. Funny records with Hello Mata, Hello Fada.
She
had
Sherman.
She had some of his stuff. And so,
I remember hearing that over and over.
And we just, it was so,
and you laugh.
It was so cheeky because you're like a little kid and you're listening to the adult jokes. Like, how they say about Mad Men is never, Mad Men tells you all of a sudden our generation what the parents were actually doing. Like we had no idea what the parents were actually doing because it was so separate from our lives.
And you know what? Neither did they.
No, I know, but we didn't.
They didn't have a clue.
Didn't have a clue either. But we had no idea how they, what they did and what they laughed at. We didn't know their comedy. Yeah. I remember watching Dean Martin. I was probably 7.
Roast.
I thought Dean Martin was the greatest thing. The Dingling Girls. Yeah.
Who would your dream concert be?
I think Lady Gaga. I think I would like to see.
She's quite a performer.
I've seen a few people that I've wanted to see. I saw Garth Brooks at the Grand Ole Opry before Garth Brooks was just about Garth Brooks. Mm-hmm. You buy your tickets to the Grand Ole Opry, but you don't know who you're going to see until you get there on the Friday night.
It was like a week.
And it was just like
he was nobody. He was the biggest.
I was on the floor in the Grand Ole, we were on the floor. It was and everybody's taking pictures, old cameras, as of course, there's a sea of flash,
Mm-hmm.
and this total stranger would grab my arm and she'd say, we're going up. And we would go up and then we'd fall to our knees. We'd click a picture and fall to our knees. And, on whatever kind of old camera you had. But I remember all the security ladies were in white t-shirts and black 4-trail slacks and their hands across their big bosoms. And they were all like about 60, 70 years old. And they're like, sit down, dear. There's somebody behind you. Sit down, dear. And it was just like, but it was the most organized chaos.
What about you could have dinner with anybody?
I used to say George Clooney. I used to, I still to this day, if I have to write my name on something, I just put Mrs. Clooney. I went to a
What does your husband think?
He just thinks it's funny. He calls himself Mr. Clooney. But like, yeah, just like I've written Mrs. Clooney on a million things. But like, I think Dan Levy would be extraordinary. Dan Levy created a world that is small town, but it's not making fun of the small town. It's making fun of human beings for all the pretension and stuff, as opposed to every other show that makes fun of the small town and the people that are there. Like, you know,
Green Acres was awful.
Like Corner Gas. Like, you know, there's there's a level of satire, and then but then there's a humanity that we haven't seen before, which is really exciting for me. Because I always like when I write or script writing and that kind of stuff. Like all my scenes are always most often about people that are in those places. I've had moments in my life where things have happened where I shouldn't have been where I was, and then all of a sudden I get this like, what am I doing here? And then I realize what I'm doing here, and that's what happened with comedy. I'd watched it. I used to go to the Blockbuster and rent out comic relief specials with all the great comics, and I used to, read about it and things like that. But I went and watched a comedian down in Penny Lane here in Calgary. I had been there with my friends on the Friday night, and then we were down on Electric Avenue, back before it was known that, of course, and we were all drinking down there. And then everybody was having way more fun than I was down there. And I said, inexplicably, because I'm terrified of the dark, I don't do things by myself. I'm from the farm. We had people around us at every meal. Like, I don't eat by myself. I don't move by myself. Mm. I said, I'm going to walk up all the way from 11th Avenue to 9th Avenue all by myself in the dark, and I'm going to go watch that comedian again. And I did. I walked up there, and I figured nobody would say anything to me because I'm at a table, and that's all there. We're all supposed to pay attention and be quiet. And so I paid attention, and I was quiet, and I knew, all of a sudden I went, oh, there's a science to this. I could do that.
So when you came out to your friends and family as a comedian, was it a traumatic experience?
No. My parents were like, what? Like, my mom still laughs about going when I phoned home and said that I was, and they're like, wow, what? My friends, I practiced with a bingo dauber as a microphone, and practiced in the living room before my first night at Yak Yaks, back when Yak Yaks was in the Black Pavilion.
Speaking of, tell me a Mark Brisson story.
He said, first time you always had to open for him, you had to showcase for him so he knew what his product was across the country. Mm-hmm. And so he'd come to town, and I had gotten away with a lot of shows, opening, just being an opening act and stuff, a lot. And I had a joke that I'd be I was going to be a Yak Yaks comedian a long time before Mark ever saw me be a Yak Yaks comedian. So he came to town. And so it's very fancy when Mark comes to town. And so the owner, Bill Robinson, was like talking to him, and he goes, who do you think should go on first, Cory or Albert H? He was another comedian in town. He goes, who do you think should go on first? And he goes, who do you think should go on first? The typical mind game that you could play. And then Bill said, I think Cory should go on first. He goes, Albert's going to go on first. Like whatever it was. He just did the opposite of whatever he was told. And so when he introduced me, he said, she's open for AC/DC and she's still sore. Ladies and gentlemen, Cory Mack. That's how he introduced me. He introduced Albert H. I've heard there's a lot of really great things about this guy. He's very funny, Albert H. So that's the intro that he got. That's the intro that I got. That's my story.
Yeah.
That's my best story. Yeah. But, I worked for them for 16 years. Like, I grew up there. Mm-hmm.
Now, going out on a road as a woman, alone, with in a field that's so male dominated. Yeah. What was that like?
I think it was like when we first started. It was. It was shocking for my parents because I was. I don't know. What am I? It's 30 years, so I was 26, single. All this, and my parents were like, "You're gonna go in the car with him," and then the Yak Yaks run used to go Calgary, Estevan, Moose Jaw, Prince Albert, Regina, and in the summertime, Kenosha Lake, back to Calgary.
So that was the circuit.
That was the order on 1 week. So every week there was one car. Yuck Yucks had one car. It was the Yucks car. We, two of us would get in that car and we would drive that circuit in that same car. And then sometimes you would go north to Cold Lake and Fort Mac and those kind of places. And sometimes you go to BC. Like, so the Yucks car went different directions. Very seldom you had a rental. Sometimes in the, as things went along, we started to get rentals and the Yucks car died and stuff. But yeah, but there was a great deal of amount. Like, I love to drive. Like, I knew that, doesn't matter who you are. Like, there's been microaggressions my entire life. And so I had 3 brothers, you get along. And I wanted to be on that stage. So, you just kind of, like, I've been with lots of headliners and nothing untoward, but like really just, like a little bit of something, and you're just like, just whatever. And so you just keep driving and you do your show and you just, like, I'm a very good audience member. I keep it quiet. I watch what's going on and I just watch and watch. Like, I'm always, and maybe it's not a healthy all the time, but I'm always a couple steps ahead. So I could see where I was headed and, you just leave the room or you just go, that was a great supper. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go do my tax. You just make up something and just, you don't have to hang out with them. You don't, my theory has always been that I'm only hired to be on the stage. Like, I'm hired from 8 to 8:30 or 8 to 9 or however long I had to do. If I choppered in, if I rolled in a canoe, none of your beeswax, you only paid me to be here. So the travel, the 8 hours in the car each day or the 6 hours, you would just be on your... Sometimes we had a great time. But I would say something now that I wouldn't have said then. But it's only because I have the freedom to say yes or no. Back then, I had to say yes.
Did you ever feel you were in a predicament where you couldn't get out of?
Not then, no, I didn't have anything like that.
That was good. Then.
No, it's good. Yeah, no, I worked with a lot of great guys. There was guys that were like strange. Like, just like, maybe they thought I was strange. Like, I just smiled. But I've known a lot of humans. And I think everybody's got a story, right? And everybody serves somebody. And I just smile.
Tell me about corporate gigs. What's the strangest corporate gig you ever had? Because isn't that like for a lot of comedians, the bread and butter is corporate gigs?
Well, it should be. Like, not enough people try to get corporate gigs. Not enough people. Everybody wants to have the gigs that leads them, to TV. I don't know what they're doing. They're like, they're doing lots of club gigs and stuff like that. But the world has changed. It's evolved since when we started. Like, Yuck Yucks was the thing. Now it's like festivals and, in my mind, there's corporates and there's like cruise ships. There's so many ways. There's web series. There's all kinds of ways you can get your product to market that didn't used to exist. So it's changed dramatically. I love corporate gigs. I chose marriage. I chose kids. I chose a day job. I don't know. There's not many comedians that don't have a day job. Like nowadays, because the economy is the way the economy is for everybody, right? So it's always been my side hustle. I have always had a job. And corporate-wise, the weirdest thing, once I sold myself at a silent auction to go do a show for whoever bid the highest. And so this dad bid on me to do comedy at his daughter's wedding, but he did not tell anyone, including his wife and including his daughter who was getting married. So I went to a mountaintop in Pritis, marched up looking for Jerry. I've only met him once. I've talked to him on the phone. It was long before cell phones and all that stuff. I get to the wedding, there's a wedding tent and nobody knows who I am. Both sides can't recognize me. They don't know what I'm doing. And then Jerry's so pleased that she was throwing daggers out of those eyes. She was so mad at him. Like, wouldn't you be? Like, you don't know what your dad's cooked up. And here I am. And there's babies crawling around my legs. And, it was early days. I was funny, but who knows, And I had some wedding jokes. And I think he thought this would be just a fantastic way to start a wedding. So. It was in early days. We were out at the barracks at over where they don't exist anymore. The Curry Barracks, and somewhere in the middle, this guy said, "Get off the stage, you fucking bitch." and I said, suck my cock, just as fast as he said, and it was perfect timing, and everybody laughed
Great
and laughed and laughed, and everybody was like, because we used to always say it at the club, we used to always, there was the manager there, Jane, used to always go, suck my cock, and so we always said it. So he said, get off the stage, you fucking bitch. I said, suck my cock, and then they laughed, and then they just heckled, because then they thought I had 1 million comebacks.
Ooh.
Then they were like, oh, what do you got? So I always say, never open with suck my cock. Never open with that. Just like build up to it. Don't be mean. Say other things.
Get warm with
get warm and
get them on your side.
Suck my cock. Yeah, like slap here, kitty kitty smack.
When you get introduced to people, you walk into a party, whatever, you get introduced to people that they'll say, oh, this is Cory Mack, she's a comedian. Mm-hmm. Now, do people come up to you and say, okay, Cory, be funny?
They do.
Entertain me.
They sure do. Christmas dinner. And now, Corinne is going to tell us some jokes. And I said, good thing I didn't go into gynecology. That's what I always say, just to be funny. But it doesn't happen as often anymore. I think I'm not really the party person. You can ask anybody that we know in common. I'm not a outgoing person. I just watch people. Like I said before, I enjoy watching people, but I kind of watch people, and
But do you feel under pressure to be on all the time?
No, not at all. I'm totally the opposite. I'm the opposite of that. People are so surprised. Listen, one time I was taking, one of the 1 million diet things that I've taken, programs I've taken. This woman's measuring me. She's measuring me, and she's saying, oh, what do you do for a living? And she's older than I am. She might have been 70. She's trying one more job. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So she's measuring me, and she's like, what do you do? And I said, I'm a comedian. And she goes, oh, you must be a dry comedian, because I just been an asshole to her. Because you're so shamed, and you're like so embarrassed. And I had just been like, speed it up. Like, I just been like really curt with her the entire experience. I'm not normally like that, but I'm just dying 1,000 deaths, because this is like the 20th time we're doing this. And she's like, oh, you must be a dry comedian. So my friends and I laugh about that.
That's actually a good comeback.
It's a good comeback. And she's like just going like this to me, and I'm just like, yeah, no, you win. Co-founded it and co-produced it for 7 years, and we've just ended it like a couple weeks ago. We're just gonna slowly shut her down, and it was extraordinary to bring comedy to connect Calgary to the world through laughter. Was what we had for our vision, but the mission was to more laughs for more people, which is a very simple mission, and one that's so integral to the health of a community and a culture in a city. And so there's lots of extraordinarily qualified comedians that you'll never see, because they aren't on the stages at Yuck Yucks, and they aren't at the stages at the Laugh Shop, and they've surpassed it, or they haven't got there. So it was a combination of all the venues in town. We supported them, and we did some stand-up, but we did mostly stand-up, sketch, and improv. And so over the years, we had some live podcasts. We had industry workshops on writing, stage. Has
any comedian ever just unannounced just shown up?
Not to the festival, no. No.
Have you ever been in even in Yuck Yucks or whatever?
Oh yeah,
somebody just drops in and does
like at the Comedy Monday Night, Zach Galifianakis. I'm going to say.
And wasn't this the thing with Zach where nobody would believe it was him?
James asked him to prove that he was him. Mike MacDonald went to Yucks and did his practice set and dropped in. So
he was so funny. God rest his soul, but he was so funny.
No, we worked together. We had an extraordinary, and there's a guy that should have had a music career. Like, he should have been a DJ. Mike and I were on the road. We did a Fort Saskatchewan, Medicine Hat, a couple other cities, and he does, he would sleep, and so I drove. He slept. He's always sleeps during the day, and so his work day starts at 8 p.m. at night when he goes on the stage, and then he gets off the stage. He does all his notes on his show, and then he writes through the night, and then he sleeps during the day. And if he's not traveling, if he has to travel, then of course the comedian has to drive. And so I was listening to Guy Clark and Love It and things like that. And he was like, is this yours? And I was like, my husband's got a few CDs in the car. And so we started talking about music. And then on the third day, he rose. He stayed awake and he played me because he had like a 10 gig iPod, like this glorious thing. He'd record a show every night. And he never used to watch. He would do like an hour and a half and never look at a watch. Like to the second, like just like, and he's doing all the act outs that you would expect Mike MacDonald to do, always on time. But anyway, he's got this 10 gig iPod, and he loved cover tunes, so he had 7 or 8 versions of most cover tunes. You know, so like Disco Duck, he'd have like 5 different versions. 3 versions of this, and he loved disco. His wife Bonnie and my husband Ian did not like disco, so here's the two of us jamming down the highway playing Disco Duck like our heads have caved in. But he had stories about the discos in Montreal and Ottawa and all these things. I said, you have to have a podcast. So what are you going to do with 10,000 gigabytes of songs? Like he had them on all, he could just roll through that thing and look it up for me. So he gave me a full day. I was worried to stop for gas because I didn't want it to end. It was one of the most glorious days of my life. Music has been my companion. I'd come home. I was bullied in high school, so in school, not high school, but elementary school.
Almost everybody was bullied
Super
in high school,
bullied.
weren't they?
I'm not in high school. I made it out okay in high school, but I would say
Junior high.
Like we were like at the elementary school, and then we went to high school, and we were grade 9, 10, 11, 12. So grade 1 to 8, it was a rough go. And I'd come home and I'd pound the shit out of that piano. I would play and play and play and play and play Barry Manilow, whatever. But it was like your greatest companion. There's a song called something about nobody knows me like my mother's piano that my daughter put on this Spotify list for me, and it's just like in my mother's home, the piano in my mother's home, and I just like totally that's me, because it's just like that music was the catharsis or the thing, and so that's how I feel. I never feel alone when I'm on the road because I have this. But I can't do that here. You can't do it here. Like it's not the same here for me. Like I don't play music on the record, and I don't. The boys play my son and my husband and my daughter. My husband and my daughter are huge musicologists. Like they and Curtis is a DJ, and they all know, and they've learned all kinds of stuff from their dad. And my music is so eclectic, and they've learned that from me too. And it's like they laugh in the car. We never play my music.
What's the funniest joke you've ever written?
I have a joke about an iPhone. I said my husband got a new iPhone. I'm not jealous. I'm a bit jealous. I'm not jealous because he got a new iPhone. I'm jealous because I wanted my husband to touch me like he touches his iPhone. And I looked across him at the breakfast table, and he's doing this and this. And this. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm looking up an address. I said, why don't you look up my address? And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm looking up an address. And I go, you know what? I'll take you there myself. That's the joke. Yeah. And they say, you know what? I got a few apps of my own. You guys are all laughing, but the truth of it is, next time you touch your iPhone, you'll be thinking about me and my husband. My top 5 albums of all time are, I'm going to say Barbra Streisand's Greatest Hits, Closing Time by Tom Waits, Garth Brooks, the first one, Melissa Etheridge, the first one, and I think Barry White, and maybe that's crossed with Folsom Prison, the live album.
Can I have a hug?
Yes, yeah, for sure.